There are solar developers that are really anxious to, in our perspective, do the right thing. They're a business, so they have to make the economy fit. They have to make the finances fit, and we understand that. The beauty of the pollinator-friendly versus a fescue is the maintenance. Once you plant the seeds, which do tend to be slightly more expensive than perhaps a low-grow fescue, that initial planting, after that point, all the benefits show up in the financial component of it, because prairie needs so much less maintenance. After year 3, once we can demonstrate financially that they're going to be saving money over the life of an array. Solar arrays are typically at least 25 years with an option for an additional 25. So you take any of your maintenance costs for even just the first 25 years and see what maintenance costs you don't have with the prairie. Once we can show those numbers to a solar developer, even just on the financial side of the story, they're able to see that having prairie saves them money. Then when they realize all the benefits that it does, public relations wise, what that does to them to help the neighbors see that the solar array is going to be in the native habitat, that's another great component. If we can appeal to their hearts, that they're going to now see, monarchs. Some of these solar developers might be in Greece or India. They still see the beauty of what a native habitat brings to another part of the world.
So the challenge with these native landscapes is they're not instantaneous, and so that's one of the issues that we're dealing with as these developers are trying to deal with their SWIP permits and get them closed out. They need to get a certain percentage of vegetative cover before they can sign off on them and then turn them over to the O&M people. And so that's one of the reasons a cover crop is used in the process, is you get that quick green, stabilizing the soil and providing that cover. But the first couple of years, the prairie plants, the native plant community is really slow to develop above the ground. It really works on its root systems the first couple of years. It's kind of like an iceberg if you think about it. What you see above ground is just a fraction of what's below ground. During these first couple of years, these plants really focus on the below ground growth, working on their root systems. And so during that time period, you can have a lot of weeds move in, pioneering species that tend to want to take over and crowd out the prairie that's developing. So we employ a variety of techniques to control those weeds, namely the first growing season, it's mowing. Come into the site about 3 times a year and mow those weeds so that A, you prevent those weeds from producing more seed, and B, you want to open up the canopy so that the sun can get down to the ground and reach those young prairie plants that might only be this tall at that point. So the first growing season is mowings, and the mowing, the cost of the mowing is anywhere from $120 to $160 an acre, depending on the size of the array. I don't think it's too much different than mowing a conventional landscape as far as the cost. The second growing season, we might do another mowing, but then at that point it evolves more into spot control, where crews on ATVs might go up and down the aisles and look for perennial weeds like thistle and spot treat those plants, and just to make sure that there's no problems encroaching into the array. And it's once again, it might be 2 or 3 visits per year, and that happens again the next year. And then after that, generally about the 3rd growing season, the landscape is pretty mature at that point, starting to come into its own, looking pretty good, and then the maintenance needs at that point start to wane.
I say, if I put my economic hat on, and I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert, but I do run a business and I've managed to survive for 40 years, I do understand supply and demand. And every field that comes out of corn production comes into pollinator and energy production. There's that trade-off. Is one better than the other? And if you reduce the number of acres of crop production, those crop fields that are left are going to, in theory, have more value, because you're cutting down the production, the supply a little bit. The supply that's left becomes more valuable. If I was an adjoining farmer and my neighbor said, I'm going to put 200 acres of my fields into solar, I'd be going, hey, this is okay. My neighbor Jerry is gonna get paid for that. Number one, it's not like they're putting him out of business. He's gonna get a check. All he kind of really has to do is walk down to the mailbox. For 25 years, there's a lease agreement. He's contributing to energy to our society instead of corn. Okay, we need energy. We all turn the lights on. That's not bad. And I, the neighbor, now have a higher demand for my corn because Jerry's not making 200 acres worth of it.